Hello, everybody, and welcome to another very special webinar. I know I sound like a broken record, if anybody knows what a record is anymore, but this is a really special one. Servicefinder has been in the works for a long time, and it's not your father's service finder, as they used to say. Tony, remember that expression from the old ad there? Totally new. The fleet maintenance work order inventory solution. Are you trying to manage an aging fleet or a mechanic shortage? Do you have vehicles break down? Are you trying to justify expenses, get new vehicles? Servicefinder is the tool for you. We're going to talk to a client who's been using the old Servicefinder for a long time and what he's looking forward to with the new and improved and better Servicefinder product. So we'll get to Steve Leslie in a moment. Also today, Tony Civitella, our president and CEO, and Zach Moren, our sales enablement manager, are going to go into some details that you may not know. And even if you went to a previous webinar on Servicefinder, I can promise you that there's been new developments even since then. It seems like really weekly, definitely monthly, there are new functions and capabilities that make this even just more robust of a tool. So you want to stick around for that. We're going to have a poll question, so please stick around for that so we can get an input from you of maybe what's holding you back from getting Servicefinder. You may have some misconceptions that I think we can help dispel today. So there's really a lot we're going to be covering, but without further ado, I want to bring on our special guest. We had two special guests. If you had gotten an email from us and you saw that we were going to have two panelists, unfortunately, this is the way things happen in life. We had an emergency come up, and so he's not, Craig Lips from Ravenna, Queensland, Selkirk is not able to join us, but we'll get him back on again. You may have seen an email that we've had with him featured in the past, and have a video of how Servicefinder, his mechanics, have completely embraced. Steve, you can come on camera. I'll introduce you in a moment, but I got to tell you, Craig, his mechanics completely embraced Servicefinder, even though he thought that they really weren't going to like it too much. He's using it for work orders. He's also using it to track productivity. He feels like he has a handle on inventory like never before. He said when he came in, they did not have any real true way of keeping track of inventory. Things were just on the shelves, and what you saw is what you had. And he can say it a lot better than me, so I'm not going to take any more of your time with that. But I want to bring on Steve Leslie. Steve is with the transportation. He's the transportation director of Osceola School District in Wisconsin. Steve, you had a colleague of yours on yesterday. We've had two Wisconsin, Rachel Neubauer from East Troy. Do you know Rachel?
Yep.
It's wonderful, wonderful interview with her yesterday. Anybody who missed it, that was all about compact districts and why you may think your district's too small to have a robust software solution like Route Finder Plus, but you are mistaken, and Rachel will tell you why, as well as Clara, who is with Scotia Glenville. So, Steve, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career in transportation, and then a little bit about your district and how many students you're transporting, maybe how many drivers, mechanics, something that kind of gives us a sense of your operation.
Sure. I've been in student transportation for 41 years. Started out as a driver, worked my way through training, being trainers and garage supervisors, and now I'm a transportation director. I've worked in two states, Minnesota and Wisconsin. Kind of settled here in Wisconsin for the last 15, 20 years. The districts here are smaller. Smaller than I'm used to. I worked in districts that were 10,000 students in the past. I'm now working in districts anywhere from 1,200 to 1,900 students. We are small rural districts, so having good computer programs that can track things help us out greatly. When I started in the district, the first district in Wisconsin, we didn't have any solutions at all. We brought in Transfinder Pro for our routing. Eventually, my frustration with what we had on the shelves and not knowing what was on the shelves prompted me to start with Servicefinder there. When I moved to this district, I quickly brought on both of those solutions because I knew them and I knew how good they worked for me. things like inventory control, knowing what you've got, tracking your vehicle age, tracking your vehicle costs. Those kind of things were important to me to make us better. Transportation funding is somewhat controlled, and you have to make the most of all your dollars, and especially in the repair side. So using a program like Servicefinder helped me get better in knowing where my money was going.
That's great. Now in leadership, either it's a school board or superintendents, like they probably want to see, like they want you to justify why you want what you want, how you're spending your money. Am I correct?
That's correct. I give reports to my board twice a year, starting the year, kind of telling them things that we're anticipating, how our startup was. I give them my goals for the year. The other thing that I kind of talk over with them is the age of our fleet. We happen to be a very aged fleet compared to most. We're keeping buses right now 18 years.
Wow.
Which the industry average really is 12 to 14 years in our area. So we're really having to find things like that. The other things I do is I talk to them about real costs, what it costs to maintain a bus, the rise in prices that are going on due to just our society today, and how do we become efficient doing that. So those are the things that I have to report to them with.
That's great. It's one of those things where, the efficiency is becoming more and more important. We're hearing, I mean, I thought the industry average was 10 years. So, because I was just on a NIAPT, New York's Association for People Transportation, and they were talking about replacing buses every 10 years. So when you say 18 years, you're almost like getting, twice as long on these buses. Have you had situations where, I think you have to keep on top of so many things: drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, routers, and then to know how many air filters you have. That's like, is it nice to have something that is kind of like, you get alert? I mean, you set up alerts for yourself to know when you're running low on something, when there's a training that needs to take place, when there's a license that's about to expire, all those kind of things that there's physically impossible for one person to really be able to keep on top of manually.
Yes, and that's what I like about Servicefinder is I get reminders of where my stock level is. Today in manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing is really important to keep their costs down, and we do the similar things with school bus garages. We keep the things that we know we go through consistently, and so having a program that can tell us how many we have on the shelf. And it automatically deducts, and we know when to reorder. We can even set up automatic reordering with our suppliers through it, and so that saves us a ton of time. So it makes our mechanics, it makes myself a lot more productive for our districts.
That's great. And you're going to be making, so you've had, I think you were telling me before that 15 years you've been working with Servicefinder. You're going to be making the move to the new and improved Servicefinder, which interacts nicely with really our RouteFinder Plus platform. What are you excited about with the change?
Well, having worked with the RouteFinder Plus platform for the last 4 or 5 years since it came out, I've been working with it, and I like the way that I can move from one point to another and in the system and track things. It makes my job easier. It's very intuitive. It makes it easy for me to sort, make filters, find the things that I need to. So I'm looking forward to that functionality with the new program.
That's great. Super. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Steve's going to stay on the line. I think you can take yourself off camera and get a Coke or something. But Steve's going to stay on so that when Zach and Tony give their presentation, they may want to, I know how these guys are, and they may want to pick his brain on something or get his sense of how something is working for him. So Tony and Zach, you can guys come on. We want to launch a quick poll question while they're coming on. Bridget, if you could bring out this poll question. And Steve, I'm going to ask you this question as well while we have this poll question up. That, your experience, in terms of whenever you want to buy new software, You know, what are the kind of things that could prevent somebody from getting Servicefinder? One, you know, budget. I don't know enough about Servicefinder. That's part of the reason why we're doing this webinar, is to help maybe remove some of those question marks people may have. I use another fleet maintenance program. One, I use another vendor for transportation. So they may think because I'm using brand X for routing that I can't use Servicefinder. I can't have two different vendors. And so that might be something that some people think. I think we're going to dispel that today. And then I don't think we need software to handle this function. Steve, what would you say might be one of the things that is a block there?
Well, because I already have Servicefinder, the original version, I have something to work with. But budgetary things are important to me and my district because I'm putting a great deal of my costs into repairing my aging fleet. We're gonna get newer. We just purchased 3 buses, and that's gonna help me save some of my repair budget that maybe I can start to apply towards upgrading to Servicefinder and some of the other products that I'm enjoying and looking at with Transfinder.
That's great. Thanks so much, Steve. Okay, Bridget, you can close that down. We'll bring the results of that poll back at the end of Tony and Zach's presentation. Tony, some good stuff there. Unfortunately, Craig couldn't join us, but I know that we'll bring him back on down the road. But Steve had some 15 years, Tony, using Servicefinder. What do you think of that?
That's amazing. Some good takeaway. I love how he's doing the auto reordering. And I tell you, the aging fleet at 18 years, that's impressive. I've got some ideas, and I'm sure Zach will talk about those type of things. You know, in New York State, there's some new there's some incentives to move vehicles to electric. You know, like it or not, that's what's going on. And of course, maybe that's another angle to say, hey, because I know there's a transition period. Well, it's a lot of money to buy electric. Well, one way to save that money, perhaps you could do what Steve did, is truly stretch the life of the fleet. That's not a bad idea. I mean, it's always been something we talk about, but 18 years, it's impressive. So maybe we could ask more questions. How is he doing that toward the end?
Yeah, even before we got on here, Steve was talking to me about how they're investing in some new buses, which he knows are going to bring his fleet maintenance costs down, and using some of those funds to invest in more technology, which is a great plan as well. You know, a few things that I wanted to highlight and kind of call out here is that, you know, within fleet maintenance, we're hearing a very similar story across the industry. So anyone on this dealing with some of these challenges, key to remember that you're kind of not alone in that situation, right? So a number of districts that are talking about the age of their fleet and the need for replacing their buses, you know, been a huge factor for districts there. Just inadequate funding as well, right? So a big piece that we always like to talk about with our technology is, how's the technology going to pay for itself? Being able to know where your money's going, being able to know where your costs are, you know, can really help you save money in the long run. So that's a big piece we always want to bring up. And then 45% of districts cited challenges around their technology, right? Outdated or just no technology. And Tony, for myself, I know I was in Reno not that long ago. I had a room full of people there, fleet managers, and I asked them how many people are bringing in technology into their garage, and I was shocked at the number. It was, you know, maybe 15% of people were using actual technology there to manage their fleets. You mentioned a few pieces about why this is so important too.
Let's really face it. I think there's a stigma around maintaining school buses. I mean, these are smart men and women that are working on these vehicles, and it's almost like, oh, no, just get a bigger hammer if something is broken, right? And it's that stereotype that I think things have changed. There's nothing too much you could do at this point just with the right wrench and that right hammer. I think, you know, there's a lot of the OBD2 port that you can get information about the bus. That's become standard, and those are things that now, like, you can't just plug any computer into that thing. You need to be, you know, some sophisticated software. So I think there's a significant switch to technology, and that's really why we invested very heavily on a new platform, new technology. That way, it lasts, our clients another 5 to 10 years, obviously. And software, there's generations of software. Who knows what's the next thing? Maybe it's really in the cloud. There's no screen. It's just all in the air. That'd be kind of cool, right? You wear some cool glasses and your keyboard, everything is in the air. But we're not there yet. So let's talk about what we have today.
Absolutely. Not there yet, but AR, VR, definitely the future.
Right, it'd be fun.
Big pieces that we're talking about today are the pieces we're hearing that districts are struggling right now. Things like vehicle history, the compliance for DOT. I'll be honest, and I've been in enough garages now that I can see what vehicle history a lot of the time looks like is, a big filing cabinet, right? With all of their documents, their paperwork, everything printed out. But when you need to go back or reference something, very, very challenging to do. Scheduling preventative maintenance, this one's always so key. I ask every time I'm talking to fleet managers, how often do you miss those service dates, right? Because a lot of the time they have a big calendar, they've got a to-do, or they're relying on the drivers to kind of bring the vehicle in, and this could be a really big challenge, right? Being able to make sure that you're catching your preventative maintenance, bringing it in on time. I'm sure we don't need to talk about how much this can save a district there and catching incidents beforehand rather than having a breakdown out on the road, right?
Zach, that's probably how you could get 18 years out of a vehicle, to make sure they're on top of scheduling and try to do the pre and post inspections and catch things before it's too expensive, because there is a diminishing return, right? At a certain point, I mean, any vehicle could be fixed and repaired and so forth. At what point are you spending too much money on repairing and maintaining a vehicle versus let's just buy a brand new one, right? That's always the challenge. Where is that tipping point, right?
Tony, that's always an interesting conversation when I'm talking to fleet managers. I'm sure Steve will back this up, and I talk about where is a lot of your money going. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's your old vehicles. If you got something 18 years old or 15 years old, but consistently I hear, no, it's not necessarily my oldest one, right? There's always a vehicle in my fleet that's costing me the most. And again, without technology, how easily can you identify that? How can you have that brought up and have the numbers to be able to bring to the board and say, yeah, I need to buy these 3 new buses because look how much these are costing me. Very challenging to do that without the software in place, right?
And it's the replacement cost, right? What is the replacement cost versus just maintaining it? And clearly, those are where part of our system maintains all that history. How much money it's costing you, and where is that? We're going to talk about the AI, and where is that? Hey, it's probably time to get rid of this vehicle, or perhaps with our routing system, maybe use those vehicles they're a little bit older, maybe on special occasions, maybe bring the band to the football team and so forth. Use those as spare buses, not necessarily. And again, this is where a lot of decision is made. When do I replace this, right? When do I get rid of it? And obviously in New York State, there's some big things going on here. At a certain point, you can't have any of these vehicles. So I've always think about, what if somebody buys a brand new vehicle? I think here in 2035, you can't have any more diesel or fossil fuel vehicle on the road anymore. So imagine buying a brand new one, like 8 years before then, and look, you could get another 10 years. What do you do with it? So we're going to be talking about that for a while. I know we are, but manage that, right? Especially if you're in a state that these mandates are coming at you. Well, let's manage that. Where does that make sense? Which one do you use software? Again, we're just scratching the surface based on the cost that a lot of you are going to have to be incurring. Just talking to a school district nearby us here last week, and his numbers were just massive, just to put charging station. So we're talking about our type of software. It's nothing. It's almost like, I think I said, Zach, I think I told this person, it's like we're like a rounding error. That's how much our software would cost from the numbers we've talked about.
Yeah, like you said, compared to
Like, man, you can just go in Excel and maybe change the decimal points. Where's the rounding error? And so this is where the expenses are skyrocketing. We know that.
Yeah. Well, last piece that we'll definitely talk about is that managing inventory. I know Steve brought that up and how he uses a platform for it. You know, this is another one. I talk to a lot of fleet managers. I say, you know, what's that look like? And it's on their to-do list, right? And we know, again, if you're looking at saving costs, you're buying more inventory when you have that sitting on the shelf, you're just investing money that you don't have or could be going other places. So we'll wrap up and we'll kind of talk about that inventory management.
Some of that stuff does have warranties and expirations. So when you talk about inventory, you know, it's not like having fruits and vegetables that at your department that goes bad really fast. But there are things that our clients are buying that does have a warranty, and it's obviously if it's sitting on the shelf, the clock is ticking. So use that before you buy something new, right? And so those are important to know. I mean, I know it's, most things just don't have an expiration. It's a washer, it's a gasket. They really don't get bad, but I'm sure something will get bad. I mean, maybe even gas will start drying up and so forth, right? So.
Okay. Well, let's jump into it. Vehicle history is a big piece that districts are looking to solve, right? The information's all over. And again, this really comes down to compliance, right? When DOT's coming in and looking for information on your inspections, on services, on all these different pieces, having all of that in one place can be really powerful. So within our platform, when you go into your vehicle, you should be able to see every bit of information associated with that. And that includes things like all of the work orders associated to that vehicle. Right? Work orders are a big one that I hear all the time because, you know, situations come up where a vehicle's coming in for a transmission issue. And I say, well, I know we did a similar transmission on another vehicle 6 months ago, but, you know, who did it? What parts did we use? How long did it take? I don't know. I can't go dig through my files. If you have a modern platform here like Servicefinder, I can easily search for, show me all my transmission work orders, bring it right up to the top, say, all right, Tom did it. These are the parts we used. Let's go ahead and print that out and kind of run this through the same gauntlet that we did there. So
let's face it, really even larger clients of ours, between the compact size, the smaller size districts versus larger ones, there's a lot of similarities. Some of these specialties, like you just mentioned, maybe a transmission, you may want to sub that out. Maybe that goes to another company altogether. Maybe it's another company. That's all they do is they do transmission repairs and so forth. And so then manage that. You can manage that even in our software. It doesn't have to mean everything that you're doing. It's have to be what you do. You create work orders. You may want to look at work orders. I mean, if you ever get your car serviced, my goodness, they give you I get 10 pages worth of stuff that they did on just an oil change because there's so many components sometimes, as you know. But I have that as my record. Obviously, the company that did that has it themselves. There's so much. A work order, it's not just, hey, let's just change the oil every so many miles or how many days. It's not like that anymore. It's significant. And
what's a good call out?
Ready for, right, I'm going to say, right, what, Matt, wait for everything being electric. Yeah, maybe you don't have a lot of the lubricants and a lot of things in the engine, but you still have other parts too.
Yeah. No, it's a good call out. I've worked with Servicefinder clients of ours that have no technicians. They do none of the work in-house, but they still use Servicefinder to manage their fleet, even though all of the work is being done, by an outside vendor. So they still want to keep track of that preventive maintenance. They still want to keep all that information and history in one place, right? Fuel history is a big one, right? Fuel history is a really important piece of that story. So I talk to a lot of our clients that want to manage the costs of their vehicles, and they're thinking about work order costs and the maintenance that's being done. But fuel costs is a key piece too, right? If you've got vehicles out on the road, you know how many miles they're driving, you're tying that into the fuel that they're using, you can tell a really big story about where your fuel loss and fuel usage is going. And of course, beyond that, we love to tie into a fuel system to be able to get things like odometer readings and all that. So Servicefinder ties into most of any major fuel platforms out there. We can pull in the imports from it so that we can get how much fuel was used, what was the cost, was the date, and again, what's that odometer reading? That's keeping the information up to date. So if you get a vehicle that needs to come in every 3,000 miles, you're getting that information kept up to date. You know when that vehicle should be coming in for work there.
And Zach, I got it again. I don't mean to be on this electric kick all of a sudden here. I have an electric vehicle. I don't even have a hybrid. But we're ready for that. We're ready to get that information, whether it's diesel or some of you have propane and some have just regular gasoline. But clearly there'll be the new type of fuel, which is going to be electric. Keep all that, track that information. Yes, these companies that you're going to be buying these vehicles definitely has a lot of information about, is it working up to speed? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Got it. But, and you're probably going to live in that environment, and you're going to have your own interface because it's going to provide you different software to maintain these very expensive high-tech vehicles. But wouldn't it be nice just to have a lot of information all in one side, which is really Servicefinder. And I know we'll talk about a lot about asset management, which it's something that when we created this new version of Servicefinder, we want to make sure that, well, great, it's good to have a way to maintain vehicles, but what about just other assets? Like your furnace and your normal air filters that you would have to change like every 6 months. Why not track that? But then other assets, Zach, are these charging stations, right? These are going to be very expensive assets that have to be maintained. There's a lot involved there. Yeah, you're going to have some software that's going to manage that, but it'd be nice to keep it all in one place. So really, we're hoping Servicefinder is it's going to go past just the bus garage. Use this everywhere. Use it on everything that has some sort of asset. Man, it could even, Zach, why not even keep inventory of even how many desks and how many chairs, everything. You go right down to all that information. So you really go right. And that was really the part that we want to make sure that. And so we're really building this product, not just for, it's really good for Yellow Bus, but we want everyone to know that this is a product that we have very ambitious goal to have. I don't know how many buses right now are maintained to Servicefinder, but my goal is to be, obviously we're gonna have a big celebration when we reach 1 million vehicles are being maintained using Servicefinder. So Zach is thinking, dude, there's like 500,000 school buses in the country. That's if we manage them all. I hear you. But we think, we know it. This could be used by any transportation company that has vehicles. So clearly we want to make sure it works great for school buses, but we are gearing up to make sure that this works for any vehicle that's actually in the world, if we want to look. So we're obviously making a big push for 1 million tracking vehicles. And obviously we're talking about assets. We're going to go above that. So look for some big things. So this is not, Rick, you said it best. This is not what was that? Your dad's Oldsmobile? What was that?
Not your father's Oldsmobile, I think. That's correct.
Oldsmobile. It really is not, because we have very ambitious goals to take this product a whole nother level. And it's why we built this thing. We built it to be massive. But I don't want to scare anybody away that has a couple dozens vehicles. Like, oh, wow. No, we made sure it worked for both sizes. Very large to even non-K-12, of course, and 10, 15 vehicles. Man, I always keep saying I'm going to start using it for myself. I registered through.
I absolutely do. I got my tractor, my lawnmower out here. I've got all those put into a Servicefinder environment right now. I'm tracking them all.
And when's the inspection due? In New York State, we have to have inspection done on our vehicles, and we have to have registration. I actually went on to the New York State DMV website and registered. I have a couple cars, and so I get emails when my registration is due and all that. It's like, thank God that's there, but how many different systems am I going to manage, right? And that's really it. What are we doing here? We've got to start shedding some of this extra work here. I don't know about you guys, but I have so many products I'm maintaining personally. It's like, this is nuts. So we got to start shedding some of these things, right? There's only so many products we could run concurrently on a daily basis. And if you feel my pain, please put a comment or a question, say, I hear you loud and clear, because I'm tired of it, man. I really am. So, all right.
Tony, I'm going to wrap this. Just to reiterate a point you made on fuel history, you're right that the electric cost is going to be an important piece. I was shocked at the Green Summit this year. There's a few panelists up there, and they could share the costs on everything. How much were the buses? How much were the infrastructure? But they got asked, well, how does that change your electricity costs at the district? And none of them could answer. And that information's obviously out there. It's available. I'm sure somebody's managing it, but bringing this into the same platform so that you can see those fuel costs, electric costs, all of that really key.
Zach,
Now,
I think we're hearing terminology that we've never heard before. Some of our larger clients that are a little bit frustrated, I gotta be honest, they're a little bit frustrated, but they're talking about having their own power transfer stations, that the amount of electrical power they need, not just let's face it, they have their buildings and the facilities. They're looking at, wow, we really need to bring in even more power in order to charge so many vehicles, at any given moment. So talking about transfer station, there's a lot, and obviously it's another asset. All these things could be, and it should be managed using Servicefinder.
absolutely. Last piece I always like to talk about is tracking that vehicle history, tracking your inspections in here as well. And today, a lot of inspections are being done manually, whether those are technician inspections, like your DOT inspections, 30-day inspections, but also your driver inspections, right? Daily vehicle inspection records. So many districts right now are doing it on paper. We really see there's a big need to move that to digital, keep digital records, but also use that information to populate, alerts for you, right? A driver fills in their digital inspection, they can do it right on a tablet, and that should be able to populate right into your system to say, hey, you're 100 miles away from your next inspection. Make sure to put that on the schedule there. A driver puts an inspection in and says, hey, I've got a tire out or I've got a headlight out. Hey, that should populate right in so I know that I can generate a work order. So obviously for us, that's the next big step that we're looking at for Servicefinder. We already work with other vendors, so companies like Zonar, we work with their inspection tools, but being able to bring in a digital vehicle inspection record for drivers, really, really powerful integration there.
And Zach, it's changing, right? Inspection, the things that you could see and visually inspect, obviously that's gonna be required, but there's a lot going on now in engines, and we're getting a lot of those information right from the onboard computers that's actually on the vehicle, and they're going to get more sophisticated. So all that stuff has to be great. And I know there's a huge driver shortage, so a lot of the mechanics right now are driving, which some of them really are not happy about. But there's just a human resource shortage everywhere. So how can we make sure that you still service as safe as possible all these vehicles with potentially the same amount of resources, or in many cases, Zach, there are less resources out there, less people, right? Less people fixing stuff. And so how do we do that? How do we make sure it's still as safe as possible? Let's face it, the airlines are having the same issues, that some of these vehicles are, they're trying their best. I was past couple weeks flying almost every single case. There were some mechanicals, like, I don't want any mechanical issue on my plane here. So clearly, like you tell me you just found this out like 10 minutes before the vehicle's taken off, that something's wrong with it. We literally had to get off the plane last weekend because something's wrong, and then they got us back on because everything was okay, or they fixed it. But this is happening, and obviously it's not like 10, 15 years ago we talked about maintaining vehicles. You know what I used to hear, Zach? We have enough mechanics that we're ready for any disaster. And I get it. And I don't think too many of you could say that anymore, saying, oh yeah, it doesn't matter, we'll just fix stuff, and by the way, we'll just pay people a little bit over time, or we have enough men and women to fix things. That's not there anymore. So what do you do? And again, I'm going on and on, so let's move on.
No, it's valuable context. from there, you know, talking about that vehicle history, one of the big pieces that Servicefinder is bringing too is that preventative maintenance piece, right? Our preventative maintenance is incredibly flexible. You can set up preventative maintenance based on the odometer readings, like we talked about, whether we're bringing your odometers in from fuel maintenance, from digital vehicle inspections, however you're getting it. Those can trigger alerts saying, hey, your vehicle's coming due, but you can also set other kind of reminders, right? Maybe you've got a 30-day alert that vehicles need to come in, or maybe you're bringing in other vehicles like again, I'm thinking about like a lawnmower, a tractor. Maybe you're using a time meter reading, how long the engine times ran, or hubometer. Any of those kind of meters could be brought in to kind of trigger our preventative maintenance. But you know, just to talk through what does that workflow look like? Well, users are going to be able to see an entire schedule. They can see, hey, this is all the work that we have coming due. This is the work orders that we have created, assigned, prioritized. Again, they're color coded here by technicians. You can set that up, and you get real-time visibility into what does my day look like, what does my week look like, pieces like that. So being able to schedule that work could be really valuable. Within Servicefinder, what's new for us here too is that you can also schedule your technicians. So if you have technicians that drive a bus or are doing other work or are going to be out of the garage for a prolonged period of time, you can put those schedules in, and that way you can kind of get alerts when, hey, we don't have anybody assigned to this work order, or hey, this technician's going to be out for this week. Beyond that is also those service reminders. So this is really key. So the idea is that within our platform, you set up all your services. So whether it's a 30-day inspection, a 3,000-mile inspection, a 6-month inspection, as those alerts come due, you're going to be able to come in the morning and see, hey, what do I have coming up? When is this due? How long is the work supposed to take? And they'll be able to kind of really, I'll show you here in just a second, just click and drag those services to create a work order from it. Tony, not only would you see preventative maintenance here, but you can also see things that are reported as defects, right? So if you have a driver out there and saying, hey, I've got a headlight out or a tear in my seat, all of that information can populate in here. So your garage comes in and sees all of the information in one place, and they can put that all together in one work order. I hear this kind of story all the time where a vehicle came in because we had an issue with it, you know, tire problem, headlight problem. We resolved it, we put it back on the road, and then we realized the next day, oh wait, it's actually due for a full inspection. Let's pull it off and bring it right back in. Right?
We also want to remind everybody, because it's not just the same bus that was before. You now have cameras on here. You have GPS devices. You have tablets. All those things are equipment that could go bad, and you got to create work orders to get it fixed, right? The last thing you want to do is wait too much longer on fixing a camera that's, I don't know what, maybe it's under warranty, maybe you get your camera company back to fix it. You don't want to be driving around with a bad camera, because things happen. Zach, I could give you tons of stories in early, 3 decades ago, how cameras were just, there was a lot of resistance around cameras. And of course, I think many of you will remember that you couldn't afford a camera, at least one camera for each bus. So there would literally be a black box right above the drivers, in the middle of the bus, and it was black box. Really, it was like all dark. You couldn't tell if there was a camera there or not, because many of our clients didn't buy 100% of cameras for all the vehicles. They bought a very small number, maybe 10, 15%. So even the driver didn't know, do I have a camera there or not? I mean, even they didn't know, right? So it was literally, and of course, hopefully you put a camera and catch some bad things going on. But now a driver's like, I'm not getting into a vehicle without the camera working. So these are all things that, we talk about the normal maintenance, but let's face it, there's a lot of equipment. And some of you have the license plate readers that catches people illegally passing the school bus when it's the reds are flashing. These are all things that you have to maintain now. Yeah, some of you have a third-party company that installed it and maintains it and so forth, but someone has to know that this does not work anymore. Let's get it fixed right now.
Tony, I see a good call out in the questions here. One piece is about mobile support for technicians. And I know with our next release, we are bringing mobile support to Servicefinder, but honestly, a piece that I have to share is talking with our Servicefinder team. The number one focus and priority is, what does usability look like for technicians? You can add all the features and bells and whistles you want, but the number one priority has to be, can a technician in the garage pick this up and use this and have it take less time than it's going to take them to do the actual work on the bus, right? So how easily can technicians take a phone or a tablet and update the work order to say what parts they use, or even keep track of their time to say, when did I start, when did I stop, things like that.
So Zach, and I see that some of the questions about tab and a mobile. I'm really envisioned that again, a big product that's finally, again, there's a lot of costs associated, so that's why I gotta be careful how I say it. Having a tablet inside a vehicle, which for navigation and attendance for students, but why not have that same tablet that you could? So some of you are, not getting all the tablets yet because it costs money, and very similar to the whole camera analogy I just made. But why not undock that tablet that's inside the vehicle and let now the mechanics use that same tablet? It's multi-use. At that point, you don't have to buy additional tablets or mobile devices. That same tablet that's docked inside the vehicle for navigation and attendance and all that good stuff, pre and post inspections for the driver. But why not let the technician also use it for what they're doing, right? So yeah, full support. It's mobile friendly. We want to make sure that it is. We don't want to have anything that's going to be blocking our clients from really fully using all the bells and whistles.
Well, and last thing is about that usability. I'm sure anyone that's worked with our legacy version of Servicefinder can speak to how much user friendlier the new platform is, right? The idea that I can simply click and drag to generate work orders, pieces like that, right from the grid. It makes using this so easy. Again, the idea is we want everyone in your shop to be able to update work orders, update inventory, be able to work with the platform, whether it's on a phone, a tablet, on the computer. And that's going to be the way that you get the best buy-in and the best adoption of this kind of platform, because I'm sure there's way too many school districts right now that are paying for software like fleet maintenance software, and it's just too challenging to use, right? All right, last piece I want to wrap up with is just talking about that parts and inventory. And again, this is where we really got to highlight the mobile support that we're bringing, right? So parts and inventory management, we have a full module in here. I know Steve talked about how he's using it there to be able to get his alerts when inventory is low. You can receive inventory, so if you get new shipments in, you can scan these in. But again, Tony, you think about what users are actually going to be doing with this. If you could have a phone and go up to a part, scan it right from your phone, and that adds it to your inventory library, or a technician that needs to go grab a piece out of the workshop, they grab that, they scan it and say, hey, I'm adding it to this work order, and it just updates that information. You can think about how much easier it's going to be for districts to kind of keep track of that inventory, keep track of receiving, issuing out parts, all of that.
I hate to say ease of use because it sounds such a cliche, right? It's like, it better be easy to use, right? And I'll make that whole comment about when during COVID, my mom was resistant to use a tablet so we could do FaceTime with each other. And again, she's only a couple doors down, literally a couple 100 feet away from us. But she's older and we didn't want to get anybody sick. So she was a little bit like, I don't know how to do this. So I gave her like 6 different steps, literally because it was easy to do. And it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, I could talk to my grandson using a tablet. And so the ease of use sounds like a little bit like babyish. I hate to say that word, but because it is easy to use, people start using it. And once you start using it, you're like, wow, this is not that bad. And all of a sudden, the whole technical, maybe fear, can I say fear still, right? Maybe a little fear, like intimidation. Like, oh man, I don't want, I'm not that good on computers. Well, I think a lot of people at this point that know how to do things, the flip phones, I don't know. We should probably do a poll eventually. Rick, how many people are still using flip phones, right? I'm sure there's
I like that idea.
there's a good number of it. and some of you probably don't want to get a, maybe are,
The battery lasts longer.
right? Maybe that's it. And the buns are bigger for sure, but overall, it's very difficult to do anything anymore with a flip phone. So I don't mean to knock anybody that's got a flip phone. Send me a message, say, hey, knock it off. I have a flip phone. So if you want to volunteer, you have a flip phone. I won't call you out, but yeah, let me hear from you.
Last piece I like to wrap up with, and then we'll bring Steve back in to kind of wrap up. But also just getting real-time insight, and this is a piece that could be so important. We talked about how Steve's kind of tracking his costs, pieces like that. But we've really taken that to the next level with our latest Servicefinder platform. Again, anyone that's worked with our Plus platform knows that we have a library of dashboards. They're all customizable. Same case here with Servicefinder. So you imagine users keeping track of their maintenance costs by vehicle, or work order hours by technician, or they maybe just want to come into the office and see, what does it look like today? What does my schedule look like? How many vehicles are due for service? What work orders do we have open still? And get kind of a snapshot of that information. What's really nice about dashboards.
Dashboards are awesome. Reports are amazing. And it was a good question I have to, and you've already answered it. There was a good one about, hey, is it how many users could use Servicefinder? I know many of you are thinking, well, because a RouteFinder Plus is based on number of users, right? It's limited. It's not limited. You can get as many as you, but there's a cost for each users. For Servicefinder, and then really most of our other products, it's unlimited. So it's based on number of vehicles you have, and that's it. So you could look, you got people that just have a dashboard, or maybe this guy is on your, I love to just type of dashboards right inside your shop, a big screen there. So stuff is available all the time. And of course, drivers and really the staff could see this data if you give them access to. So unlimited users. So that was a good one, a good question, because we don't want to worry about, well, how many people are using a tablet or phone and browser? No, man, it's just unlimited users. Okay.
Absolutely. And you mentioned reports too. Reports are a really powerful piece. Of course, again, we want to bring a library of reports, but where I really see this product blowing up is the custom reports we allow our clients to work with, right? So
let's face it, nobody wants to log in and pick a report and run it. Nobody wants to do that. Get this baby set up in a way that it comes to your inbox, or the right people get the inbox. Maybe it's an inventory, low inventory report that it comes right in your computer. You don't even have to go into our system. You can set up in a way that it just goes directly to your vendor, and boom, things just get purchased. I'm sure, I don't really use it. I know Amazon, you could do things in there that you could literally, like my printer that's behind me, I'm a little bit disappointed that it just did it. I guess they recognized that my toner was low, Zach. And Amazon, I got an Amazon box a couple months ago with a toner. I was like, I didn't order it, man. How did they do that, right? And clearly it's set up in there. I'm a little bit freaked out about it, but this is the future, right? But maybe I could have set up, unless it's price, I'm not buying it, right? Maybe I could have all those parameters. But don't get intimidated. This is where it's going, right? This is where we've got to be able to do the amount or more with less people. And, but I better be careful what I'm saying, because Alexa is listening to me on the other side of the room. All of a sudden, I'm buying things by just talking to you right now. Is that great?
I know. I had Siri pick up my my conversations all the time. Look, I think
Any
it's
other
a good.
stuff? I know I hear you typing. Any other good questions you got going on here?
Yeah, so quite a few questions about, transitioning from other fleet maintenance platforms. That's always a big question, right? And of course, data management is a part of our package. Whenever a client is moving into Servicefinder, we offer extensive implementation there. You're working with a specialized data specialist, a project manager, one-on-one trainer that's going to be working with your team. So we can work with you to bring in as much data as we can when you're getting started.
Oh, that was a good question. You see that last one about inventory? Because inventory, it's a go one. Because don't get fooled by other products out there. They talk about inventory. Yeah, the inventory is what you used. We talk about not what you used, but what's on the shelf unused. And you really need both. So maybe we should talk about true inventory, because yeah, good question there. To Michael, you asked a good question about, is it just inventory that you use or just inventory? No, inventory means stuff that's in your bins, or some of you have some nice lock pads because maybe some parts do somehow grow legs, right, Zach? They grow legs and they walk off the site, and it's money. And by the way, Zach, I was away for a couple of days and I forgot my back door was completely, like a door was to my shed. I'm thinking there's nothing there, right? It's the shed. But realize like, oh man, I should probably lock it. But then I remind myself all the time that people say, you know why you lock your doors? To keep the honest people out. Nobody really cares about the door being locked. They want to get in, they'll just get in. So let's make it a little bit harder, right? Some of this inventory is expensive and it does work on some cars. I mean, I hate to say it, but you guys know out there, and ladies and gentlemen, that some of these things do tend to walk off the site and maintain it. I mean, those are real money that does walk off. What's real money? $100,000. Well, someone's taking $100,000. That's obvious. But I think, to me, $100, $200, that's still stealing in the way I grew up. So it's stealing. It's stealing is stealing. And $100 is almost, today might be $100, but that person might feel like, oh man, I'm gonna get something else tomorrow, next week. And by the way, put some comments. Am I only one thinking that some parts walk away, or some of you, again, I won't call you guys out. I won't bring it up. I won't mention your name, but I think, oh, right.
So Tony, one of the features I want to call out with inventory management that's gotten the most excitement, surprisingly, out of people looking at it, is part substitution, right? And so we see it all the time where, technicians go to this one part for replacement, but if that part's out of stock, their default is, all right, better order some more. But, a lot of the time they have a replaceable part just from a different manufacturer. It's sitting there, works perfectly well. You don't have to wait the 3 days for it to ship in. But they just don't know, right? And so built within the system, we can recommend those part substitutions.
And again, Zach, some of those parts might be significantly less money than the big brand, right? And if it works the same, it's almost like a generic medicine. I don't know when that came out, but in the past, medicine was very expensive. Then all of a sudden, I think the generic brand came out. Once the big brand, their patent and their when that expired, then all of a sudden you could have these companies could start creating the generic version of something for significantly less money, and that's out there too. So I'm not saying buy parts that are not at the same level or same par as the OEM, what they recommend. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but there's other things there. If you could save money by just buying equivalent parts, but the less money, why not? Why not? Why not do it? Again, you got to look at every single piece. Every part could be now, pardon the pun, every part of in your operation. There is savings. You just got to want to be able to get in there and put your head in there. And how many people here, Zach, I'm just too busy to do this stuff. I'm too busy to do this. And it's almost like that cartoon that someone has, like, the Stone Age, someone has like this tire, like, wants to sell a tire to these people that are pulling a wagon that has square tires. And of course, this person saying, hey, I got something better for you. And they're saying, we're just too busy to look at this. I can't, I got, too busy. And of course, I'm selling I had a round tire while they're pulling a cart with a square tire. And that whole idea, I hear you, but it's why we're here for you. You are busy. Hire us, work with us, and we'll save you tons of time, because some of these things, it's part of the setup. We'll help you set it up. We're not going to manage it for you day to day, but we could do a lot for you. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, it was not as bad as I thought. So just keep that in mind.
Well, look, I'll just wrap up by saying, obviously, Servicefinder is just a piece of the puzzle for us, right? We'd love to work with your district, be a partner. We're able to bring in all of these pieces from fleet management, to field trip management, routing, student ridership, driver navigation, parent apps. From there, I think, great time to bring Rick and Steve back on to kind of wrap up for us. So.
Thanks so much. That was awesome. Lot of stuff there. Wow.
Rick, I just want to make another comment there. And Zach, you answered it. There are some people in the audience that have our legacy, our older Servicefinder. By the way, all that data just converts over. So I don't want you to think you're like, oh boy, I have to start all over. And many of you that used to have RouteFinder Pro and went to Plus, you didn't lose anything. And that was our guarantee that you're not going to lose anything. Servicefinder, it's the same thing. I think, am I safe to say that, right? Am I safe to say at this point, everyone that's upgraded, they have all their data got converted, and it's just a different interface. Is that right, Zach?
That's right. That's right.
Because that was a big one. And that is the sticky part where a lot of people already have a fleet maintenance product thinking, I love what you have, I just don't want to lose a history. And so work with us. Don't ignore that. Maybe there's a way we could convert your other systems, but for Servicefinder Legacy, 100% comes back.
Very good. Very good. But before we forget, I did mention we had a poll. We get the results. I'm sure you're all waiting. You stay down to the very end. Bridget, give us the results, would you please?
Sure. So 50% say budget is preventing them from getting Servicefinder. In both don't know enough about Servicefinder or use another fleet maintenance program at 21% is preventing them from moving to Servicefinder. And a small group, 7%, don't think that they need software for this function.
Okay, well, hopefully we got rid of the folks that are worried who didn't know enough about Servicefinder. Now I got to remember that, Bridget. But hopefully we dispelled some of those answers. Budget is always an issue, but Steve mentioned it. I know Zach and Tony did too, that this is one of those solutions that does pay for itself. I think ultimately when it's saving you money and it's keeping parts from walking off, like Tony mentioned, those magical legs that kind of seem to appear on some things. Steve, if you're still on, I'd like to have you give us a takeaway. I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Tony and Zach, you guys want to give a final takeaway? And I'm going to see if Steve is still with us here. But if you could, Tony, what's one takeaway you want someone who is listening to this, make sure that they did not miss this point?
Well, I'm going to make a big deal about this. It's also asset management. Please maintain everything. Maintain it all, from your furnace, from your AC units. You can maintain everything. It's not just the school bus. That's why it's called Servicefinder. I just want to make sure everybody knows this. It really, and our goal is to be at a 1 million asset. And you'll hear about it. We'll have a big celebration about it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. Zach, how about you? What's one takeaway?
Sure. So for me, I think everyone on this call recognizes how much is changing in fleet maintenance, right? With electric vehicles, driver shortages, budget cuts. Really what I'm hearing across the industry is right now districts can't afford to not have something in place for managing their fleets, right? So something to keep in mind.
Very good. Steve, final word.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to jump back to when we talked about keeping records. Before I started with the original legacy Servicefinder, my mechanics were keeping track of their repairs on spiral notebooks for each bus. Each place I've gone, that's kind of what they've done. Now that we've implemented this, and we ran across this just the other day, we were replacing a part that we were wondering how long did that part last us, because it just seems like we did that not long ago. It was a great tool to jump back into the history and see what we did to make sure that we're buying quality parts. So again, those are the things that just make this program a great tool and a time saver.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. That is great information. I mean, Tony's very big into data collection, that data can drive decisions. Data should be driving decisions. And you're capturing that kind of data. You know what are quality parts. And if it wasn't a quality part, then we're not going to go back there again and buy that again. We're gonna investigate. I want to first thank you so much for taking time out of your day, Steve. I know you're very busy. Tony, Zach, thanks so much for great content. I want to thank all the attendees. We know you're all busy. You're looking for information, looking for solutions. We have the poll results now. Well, I'm sure we're going to be getting in touch with you. If you have any questions you want to ask us, feel free to drop a note at mystory@transfinder.com. That's mystory@transfinder.com. And ask a question or say, I want more information. Put Servicefinder in the subject line so we'll know exactly what you're looking for. Until then, hope you all have a great rest of your day.